Wow, that music's so soothing.
Yeah.
Welcome to Blackbird episode. I don't even know what episode this is. 81. My name is James. I'm doing these intros so like informally now that I'm live streaming. My name is James. I am joined today by the great TopLobsta. He is, of course, the official artist of the libertarian podcast movement, which is definitely a movement, unlike post-libertarianism, which is a moment or something. Uh, anyway, Top, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. It's a pleasure. I'm a
Yeah,
fan.
totally. Yeah, I'm a fan of yours too. We bumped into each other in Orlando. I just bumped into my desk. Oh man, I've got to get used to being on camera. Because like my desk is super shaky. Like if I just happen to nudge it, and you're gonna get dizzy a little bit, but like it just fucking wobbles everywhere.
Yeah. I
I was
have
talking.
this I have an issue because I don't do many I do podcasts, but not my own. So sometimes I'll grab the microphone like this,
Yeah,
I'll hold it, and then I realize that if I listen back, I can hear it like boggling around because it's very
yeah,
sensitive. So I'm like, I got to stop doing that.
yeah. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so what was I saying? So you're like the official artist of Josh Smith and a bunch of other people. I've got your T-shirt on right now. People who are watching can see it as the NPC meme. I've got a couple more sitting next to me because I'm against my better judgment going to LP conventions and wanted to have something to wear. So I guess why don't we start with just kind of you introducing yourself because like everybody kind of knows who you are, but I don't think they feel like they like know you like what you do other than just kind of being the guy who's drawing all these amazing portraits.
Yeah, so my name is actually Danny. You guys can call me Danny, but the company name is TopLobsta, so I use that a lot, and that's I guess what you know me as. But what do I do? I'm a truck driver full time, and I drive around here locally in New York, and we move heavy construction materials. Before that, I did heavy construction with like building railroads and houses and things like that. Uh, and I'm trying to move into a softer field, a more artistic field. So we'll see if we can do that. But yeah, I guess you know me from a lot of the stuff that you see with Josh Smith. I was lucky enough to hop on board with him when the show first started, and now I'm doing art for Reed. You see the Naturalist Capitalist here. We've got his merch. Clint, I do art for Tower Power Hour, No Way Jose. Um, I've done for whatever anyone, pretty much you can name it, and I might have some artwork there. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's me.
you even did a picture of me, which I'm honored to have been invited to be on Josh Smith's show next week, I think. So I've got my little portrait that might become a profile picture or something like that.
Oh, that got
I
pushed
noticed.
back. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, we were gonna do it. We were gonna do it this past week, but it was on Friday night, and like I mean, not that libertarians are doing much on Friday nights, but we weren't gonna have much of an audience, and also like Josh wasn't feeling well; he had a long day at work and stuff. So I was like, yeah, let's just push it to Thursday. What the hell? Um, so I was a little bit surprised when I started seeing naturalist capitalist stuff along with like the portraits that you do, because the naturalist capitalist stuff is a lot more like graphic designy, where the other stuff is more like illustratory. Are you like pretty well versed in like all forms of that, like graphic design? Is there one that you like better?
Yeah, I would say like whenever you see my work, you'll see that it's usually people oriented. So I start with a person, and I can go from there and make it crazy. But I feel like I have been getting better with the logo stuff. It's a different mentality when you're doing a logo because you really want to be familiar with the person and with the show, and you want to encapsulate that into something simple. Like I actually didn't do this design, but I love whoever, because it's very simple. You've got the flame there for you got the Liberty Bell right here, and then the two flames on the side, and it just works. It works aesthetically. It's really simple. It's really nice. Whereas sometimes I find myself drawing, and then I'm like 3 hours in, and I've done something like wacky. There's like 1,000 things going on. I love that style, but I am learning how to do logos and more simple things. So
Yeah, Josh
yeah.
was Josh was podcasting like 5 days a week for a while there. I think he's toned that back a little bit, but I mean, was that just killing you?
At first, there was some times where I was gonna call him and be like, "Hey, man, maybe I could just do like a Photoshop of someone's face." But I was like, "Nah, fuck it. Let's like really, let's do this. If we're gonna do this, let's do it." I made the commitment, and I actually got a lot better at drawing. Like I look at sometimes I'll pull up some of my old work if I want to. like I'll do it a lot. I'll reuse someone's face or reuse a graphic, and I'll throw it here and there, change it up, make it different. Like the bird that I did for that I did on your chest in Josh's image there. It's a bird that I drew a while ago and I never used. So I'm like, I searched through and I found it. And when I was looking, I was like, the technique that I use for this isn't so great, but it'll work for what I had to do. And you can't tell the difference, but when I open it up, the inner workings of it, I'm like, oh God, what was I doing? But anyway, drawing all of those portraits for Josh really consolidated my efforts in how I do these things. So I can, if I know what I'm doing, I'll knock it out really quick. But I don't know. It really depends on the piece. But yeah, Josh worked me like a freaking horse, and I'm a lot better for it. So thank you, Josh.
Yeah. All right. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the stuff you do for Tower Power Hour is hilarious. Well, actually, some of the stuff you do for Josh too. I mean, like that one with Will Fight. Holy shit! When I saw that, I was like, "Oh my God!" Like, is he trolling or did Will like sign off on it? Is that like, do you just come up with that stuff, or do you like get ideas from like I don't know if you're funny. I know the Tower Power Hour guys are. For like
yeah, well, I smoke a lot of crack, so sometimes like on the way down from it, I have these ideas, and I don't know. I guess I am sort of funny. I have a little chat. I'm in a chat with the Tower Power Hour guys, like the main guys from the podcast, and they're fucking hilarious. So a lot of the times, like we'll bounce ideas around, and we'll just shit post and say crazy stuff. And sometimes I'm like, that's a drawing. Or the latest one I did for Josh, where the censor these nuts. So he was on Dan Smott's show and he took a COVID test. So that picture is him actually sticking I think a Q-tip in his nose. He's like, but I just thought it was great. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna draw that, and I drew him smoking it. Yeah, you got the shirt there.
Oh, it is. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
I took a screenshot of that from Dan Smott's show. You're
right.
Yeah. Man, that was like last week.
Yeah, I did it. Yeah, it was immediate. It was sometimes if I see something or I have it on it, like an idea in my head, I'm like, oh shit, I got to draw it right away. That was one of the things where I was like, all right, it's time sensitive. I got to draw it right away. But I guess I get a lot of the ideas from the guys or sometimes tweets in general. And if it inspires me, I'll just go ahead and draw it. But the Will Fight thing, I love Will Fight. I think what he's doing is great. And we were trolling him because he looks like Chris Spangle. You know who that is?
Yeah.
He looks like Chris Spangle.
From We Are Libertarians, right?
Yes. So, yeah, I don't know him personally, but I guess he's sort of like blue pilled. So if we were to compare like Will Fight, who's a Republican, to Chris Spangle, it offends him. So initially we were like, oh, we're gonna have Will Fight on the show, and I just put a picture of Chris Spangle up that I had drawn a long time ago for whatever reason, and then it was a double troll. And then when the episode premiered, Josh put up the picture of Will Fight as the the black dude with his dong hanging out. So he had no idea. He had no idea what we were doing, but he was cool with it. And
oh my God, that's great. Yeah, Chris Spangle. That I guess. So I don't want to like gossip or whatever, but so Chris Spangle was one of my like kind of entry points into libertarianism, which I like. I don't know if I would say that I'm like exiting libertarianism at this point. I'm kind of like I'm sympathetic to what Popular Liberty and Pete and all them are kind of doing. I don't know if I'm quite as radicalized as Pete, but it does kind of disappoint me to see some of these guys who were like just so instrumental in my formation in like just all of the everything that I have thought for the last 10 years or so was shaped by these guys. And like Reason Magazine, especially, to see their kind of downfall over the last couple of years has really like, it's been like a personal thing for me. What, I think you're probably younger than I am. So maybe you weren't like around in sort of the 2008 to 2010 kind of era of this new thing that's happening, surrounded by Ron Paul and all the people that he sort of influenced. But what do you make of what's been going on, like this transformation in sort of our movement and also in the culture at large?
I think that, well, so I got into like politics fairly recently. So I'm 33, so we might be around the same age. But as far as libertarianism, I am a lot younger than you into this, but I did kind of catch that phase that you're talking about, where it's like pure libertarianism, where people are talking about ideals and ideology and theory and stuff like that, and it's great. But this is probably blasphemy to say. I just feel like the times are moving, and you have to adapt to what's going on. So even someone like Josh Smith, I remember seeing him in the beginning, like when I first started getting interested in this, and he was more left than he is today. When you talk to him on Thursday, you'll understand where he's at, and it's because the last 2 years have been a smack in the face to people like us, people who we understood the theory, but then you get smacked with like straight up fascist tyranny, and you're like, well, this is not working right now because we're getting abused. So your ideas have to change and move forward, and you have to mold your mind and really figure out what's next. And I do like what PQ is doing. Andrew from Popular Liberty. I enjoy Matt Erickson. These guys are all, I'm not sure if they're doing the right thing, but I feel like that we're trying to, like, you're struggling stupidly until you figure out the clear direction. It's really true. It's like, if you ever done jujitsu, someone's grabbing you and you kind of struggle, and you move around and you can see where there's a weak point and you find it, and then that's where you focus your efforts. And I feel like maybe the post-libertarian movement is sort of that. They're saying this is not working, so let's figure out something that can help us win. And I am very sympathetic. I'm right there with you. But it is it's disappointing to see people kind of staying in the same spot as far as like the theory goes, like the big L libertarians. Some of them are, I guess, taking the knee to whatever the corporate narrative is. Maybe they're scared of COVID. And then but I also think it's a good thing, because there's a lot of people out there that are holding true to these ideas of libertarianism, because they are still good. So sometimes I feel like maybe I could find myself straying a little too far, like saying, all right, DeSantis should do XYZ.
Yeah.
It's not going to work out well for us in the end, because that power will be used against you later. But is it a tool in the short term? Absolutely. So I don't, it's a struggle.
Yeah, that's the issue I have too. Is that, like, we at the beginning of the pandemic, I think kind of everybody was a little bit worried. I mean, there were a few people who were just like super red pilled, but they're like, those are the people who, like, I don't trust basically anything they say, because they'll call everything a conspiracy. But, like, I mean, I was not completely opposed to the idea that, public health authorities, like, if there is a role for the state, then this is it. That was especially common in Reason, and like, I used to read Reason and listen to their podcast, like, religiously. So maybe that's just the reason. That's why I think it was from Reason, was because, like, they were the ones who were saying it, and I was listening to them. But it came to, like, it didn't take long before I realized, no, this is setting precedents for like, I mean, sure, maybe a lockdown now is going to stop the spread of this virus. I didn't think so when the lockdowns happened, but if they lock us down now, then what will they use lockdowns for in the future? So I kind of had the same concern about if DeSantis wants to ban ideology X from companies, or whatever it is. I guess public schools probably has a different, like, the government has authority over public schools. So if DeSantis wants to ban CRT from public schools, sure, fine, do it. But to prohibit, like, companies, and not necessarily state adjacent companies, like, if you're a defense contractor, well, then you made your bed, now lie in it. But if you're a mom and pop coffee shop that wants to require masks or won't let people in without getting the jab, then I think that's kind of your prerogative. We say the same thing, for better or for worse, about like, racial segregation. So I guess that's my issue with. Oh, I hear your family.
Yeah. Oliver's screaming down there. Yeah,
that's great.
That was a good that was a good point. The thing with DeSantis with the so he was going to fine companies $5,000 that did enforce the vaccine mandate.
Yeah.
And I could see how this is bad on one end, but on the other side, I'm a fan of that Hoppian community idea. And it's like, well, this is not a Hoppian
Mhm.
community, obviously, but we are separating. I think this country needs to be separated, like in
Yeah.
half or into a million pieces at least. And this is the
Yeah.
first step. If you don't like it, if you don't like what he's doing here, you're free to go somewhere else. New York has
Mhm.
told me such. They said, we hate you, and you can just get out of here. We're going to raise your taxes. We're going to shut down your businesses. We're going to make your life miserable on top of how shitty the city is anyway, usually. So they tell you that without telling you directly. So to me, I don't see a problem if Florida does the same. They're saying, well, we don't want these types here. So beat it. So I
Yeah.
think that that's good in a way. I see how it could be used against you later, but what choices do we have right now?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I guess like if I'm libertarian, I'm a Hoppian. Like that's just where I land. Um, at some point, I think too like big becomes too big. Like Florida is the fourth most populous state, I think, something like that. I think that DeSantis might be exercising authority over too many people.
Mhm.
Uh, so I take your point, and I'm sympathetic to it, but I think that probably that sort of decision should be made at the municipal level. And unfortunately, all the municipalities that would make such a decree are run by authoritarian Democrats. I can't see a like I wouldn't think that the mayor of Fort Worth, for instance, who is most likely Republican, like Fort Worth is one of the most conservative big cities in the country. I can't imagine the mayor of Fort Worth would like ban mask mandates in private businesses, for instance. Like I just don't see him doing that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who the mayor of Fort Worth is, but like,
Well, Republicans are generally cowards, and the reason they're
yeah,
cowards is I
there you go.
understand why. I mean, at some point in my life, I was, before I was really interested in politics or understood how it really influenced my everyday life, I would call myself a coward, kind of go along to get along. Always in my heart disagreeing with like things that were going on around me, but couldn't verbalize why or understand why. And it's probably because the culture is not on your side. The culture is very much to the left of you. So when I see DeSantis if he even just talking about it, what Trump did, talking about making a big sweeping motion, don't even
Mhm.
do it. Just say it. That's enough to start to like get people to pick their heads up from the sand. Because there's a
Yeah,
lot, there are a lot of people who agree with our line of thinking, but they just are scared to speak up. I mean, look what's happening with Joe Rogan right now.
Mhm.
They're gonna cancel this guy, but you know that there's a very small minority of people that are just loud. The rest of us, I watch the show. A lot of people like the show. A lot
Yeah,
of people like Joe Rogan, but they're not going to really speak up for him because they know the culture's not on their side. But I don't know. It's grains of sand, man. The more that this stuff happens, the more that you have strong leadership, whether it be Republican or even especially libertarians. Say what you feel, man. You want to talk like actually say it out loud and mean it. Have some backing to it. Don't water down your message. And maybe we could start to shift the culture a little by little in our direction. And that's how I think that's how you'll affect like the smaller municipalities, mayor or sheriff in the town, things like that. You know.
Mhm. What do you think's going to happen with Brogan? Do you think that Spotify will like ultimately take him off, or are they
Mm.
just going to continue just removing episodes kind of one by one?
Yeah, they're gonna take them off. I told Tommy Salmons like right away on Twitter. He was talking about it, and I was like, it's the obvious move. Like, I'm surprised the music industry didn't realize it sooner. They're heavily left wing. Every artist that gets paid there, they'll get millions of views and get paid $25 a month.
Mhm.
For Barbara Streisand, like, what's that? Like, she's not even cashing those checks. So, what is there to lose? They have their ideological message, and then they can push it that way. So, yeah, there's nothing for them to lose except for pushing out someone they disagree with. And who really owns these people is the question. And what's their agenda? What's their narrative? And I think you know that already. So yeah, what they're gonna do is they'll get enough people to hurt Spot. I think Spotify is gonna die. They didn't choose the side. They think that they can play centrist in this case, and so does Joe Rogan. He thinks that he can appease everybody, but if you don't realize that there's a culture war going on right now, and it's a hot culture war. It's not, actually it is, it's kind of violent. Look at 2020. This is the direct cause of a culture war, and most people don't realize that they're playing in it. So now you're a casualty. Joe Rogan won't die from it. He'll survive. He'll go somewhere else. Maybe go to Odyssey, but probably not. Maybe he'll make his own platform. But I don't see how can Spotify recover from this. It's just going to be a trickle, one by one, of these musicians taking their music down from the platform, because who cares? They don't even get So no, they're going to have to cut Joe Rogan, because they didn't make a stand right away in saying we're not doing anything.
Yeah,
and that's that.
Rogan would do well on Rockfin. They've got like that. He fits all of their demographics. Like they've got comedians, MMA, and conspiracy theorists. Like that's their entire thing. So and he would make them a fortune. Holy shit. You mentioned the culture war. I feel like, and this is not original to me, but like our society is in a state of decay. It's not even decline. It's like it's just rotting.
Yeah, and it's already dead.
Yeah. Well, my opinion on this, and this is why, like, I'm, for instance, leaving my position in the LP. This is why I'm kind of like not commenting on politics per se, so much as like bringing people on who are kind of making a life for themselves separate from all the systems. Do you think that it is worth it for most people to like fight against this cultural decay? Like, is the culture war our fight to enter, or should we like instead be insulating ourselves from it?
I don't think it's our fight to enter. I think it's smart for us to like take pop shots from the outside, which is what I do all day long. I'll do social commentary, but I'm not involved with the culture at all. I have no interest in entering it. I have no interest in changing it. Most of the people that I know in New York, I don't have no interest. I have no interest in converting them, because I see that they're already dead. So it is what it is. But Pete Quinones said a long time ago, before you even knew who I was, he says, when you basically America is dying. This culture is dying. And I think he was wrong, because I think it's already dead. But he said, start building what you want to see in its place. And that's what we need to do. Start building. Let this stuff die. These people are dancing fools as the towers crumble on their heads. So your efforts would be better focused on building what you're doing. And to libertarians, that means stop tearing each other down. So please, for Christ's sake, stop that. But yeah, build what you're doing. And what I do is I use this dying culture. It's a mockery. It's just something that I can point at and build my shit. So I'll take some of your bricks that are falling, and I'll start building my stuff. But I have no interest in reforming the culture or even being a part of it.
Yeah, that's kind of what Tommy was telling me the other day. I don't know if he said it publicly or not, but we were talking, like, I was kind of black-pilled on this whole trucker thing, the protests in Ottawa. Justin Trudeau will start marching people onto boxcars before he gives up power willingly. And even if the truckers win like some small victory where like, the mandates get rolled back or whatever, I mean, the damage is done. Like the next crisis, Justin Trudeau now has all of these, and the government of Canada in general, not just Trudeau. I mean, I don't think he's going to be prime minister for much longer, but the damage is done. They've got these arrows in their quiver now. I mean, you look at the TSA; it's completely ineffectual, and yet it still exists, and nobody knows why. We just have resigned ourselves to the fact that forever and ever, until the complete desiccation of the airline industry, we're going to be taking off our shoes at the airport. We are now going to be wearing masks at some places, not everywhere, obviously, but every flu season there are going to be businesses that require masks.
Even though they do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But that is what this has done to the culture. It's like they always say politics is downstream of culture, but this is entirely the government shaping the culture. People have become so afraid and so irrationally dependent on these little talismans like masks and shots, and they've become like a literal virtue signal. That no amount of protest is gonna do that. No amount of proving that masks do nothing is gonna change that. So I'm really
Yeah.
blackpilled on this. So I get did you have something you wanted to say to that? Because I had
Uh, I said like a joke like 2 years ago that I mean borders on anti-Semitic, but so what? Um, in like 15 years or 10 years or so, there's going to be kids walking around with masks on, and when you ask them why, because maybe COVID will not even exist at that point, they probably won't be able to explain it. Like kind of how
yeah.
like a Jewish person will wear a yarmulke, and you'll say, ask a kid and say, why you wear that? And they're like, I don't know, somebody told me, and that's just what
Oh
we
yeah.
do now. Yeah, so
Well,
that's what it'll be.
yeah, that's not anti-Semitic at all. I mean, that's just Talmudic law is so much of it. Like there was a reason for it, and nobody knows what they are now. Um, I think like head coverings during prayer has something to do with like shielding yourself from God or something like that. I don't know for sure,
Yeah,
but
or eating shellfish or pork
yeah,
because they were getting sick from that. Yeah,
yeah, all of that.
yeah. So no one knows why. Now it's just religion. Actually, it was an interesting video I saw on Twitter today. It was a bunch of people like worshiping, like hands up worshiping, and they were talking about racism and stuff like that. It's like
Mm.
it's a religion. It's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, no, I mean that you just have to look at any like DSA meeting for to see what I mean. The DSA is sort of the organizational arm for white people anyway, of the contemporary American left. You know, I mean the people in the congregation are all white. I mean the people on the stage are generally women of color, but I mean you just have to like they don't clap because clapping might trigger somebody, so they do this, they do the
the
jazz
jazz
hands or
hands.
whatever,
Yeah,
and like it looks like a Pentecostal worship service.
it's why I'm partially sympathetic to the message of someone like Matt Erickson, where I know you saw the tweet from James Lindsay where he was like upset with or he's angry at Christians and God and stuff like this. But again, they found a way to organize a religion around progressivism, and you see how that's taking off because it's a good way to collectivize people.
Yeah.
And again, libertarianism is about individuality, but if you're dealing in reality, you realize that you kind of need to collectivize people a little bit
Mhm.
because if everybody's just an individual, then I don't know, we're all running around with no shirt on and no pants on at libertarian conventions and not getting anything done. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's something to that. And my background is I am Christian. I grew up in church. I met my wife in church. I was the music leader in the band in church, and I was disillusioned with it. I hated it for years because of the people there. And then as you get older, you realize, the people are not, the people are in the church, but there's bigger ideas that I think are more important. And I pass them down. My daughter right now, I just dropped her off at church. She's with my parents, but there's something important there that we should not discard, in my opinion, you know?
Mhm.
And yeah, I don't know. There's something to that. There's something to that.
Are you Catholic?
No, Pentecostal Christian.
Oh,
So
okay.
grew up in like a
Wait,
Spanish Pentecostal church and now like an American Pentecostal church.
I've noticed that a lot of Latinos who do not grow up Catholic are Pentecostal. Do you know the background there?
Uh, nah, I'm not really sure. I never asked.
I don't
my
either.
my aunt,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, my aunt and uncle, they owned a church in Coney Island, and my grandmother was very big into church, so we went there, and then after that, my parents went to another church that was also Pentecostal. There is a difference in the culture there, where I
Uh-huh.
feel like a Pentecostal or the other denominations, they're more free flowing with their preaching and their message, and they actually influence you to read the Bible. Whereas Catholics, I feel like every time I've gone, like it's very like it's a chant, it's kind of like straightforward. It's a little more boring. Where
Mm.
Pentecostal is like, it's like jazz. Sometimes it can be fun if you're going to a good church, if they have good music, it can be fun. If you have a good speaker, he can be flamboyant and it can be interesting, almost like a podcast.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Yeah. I mean, LB Muniz, like when he does interviews, he always has this intro where he talks about a good interview is like jazz. Like he compares the two.
yes, yeah, yeah, free flowing. We don't know where it's gonna go, and that's actually as a musician one of my favorite. I love the blues, I love rock, but always add a tinge of jazz in because there are those not just blue notes, but off notes that don't belong. That if you can figure out how to blend them in, and make it interesting. It's interesting for the listener and the player. So yeah, I'm a fan of that kind of stuff.
What are blue notes?
Blue notes would be like chromatic notes in between. If you're playing, let's see, the scale. Let's just say the scale of C. So it's all whole steps. So C, D, E, F, G. You can play C, C sharp, D, and that C sharp doesn't quite belong there. That's a blue note. So,
Okay.
but if you kind of skip by it, you'll notice when you hear the blues, there's a certain flavor to it, and you understand that, oh, that's blues, and the
Yeah,
technicality. Yeah, so in a blues scale, you can do the blue notes. Maybe there's probably two blue notes that you can play. In jazz, you can play all 13 and just go anywhere you want. Just have to make it make sense and resolve, or maybe don't even make it make sense. Who gives a fuck? Some guys just do whatever they want. Yeah.
So I don't think I knew that you were a musician until we started talking. And actually we had a little pre-show, just kind of getting to know each other again. You mentioned that like you were supposed to be deaf or something like that. Can you elaborate on that before we get back to Canada?
Yeah. So when I was born, I had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck twice. So I guess it was at the time where they were doing sonograms, but they couldn't really tell as good. They have like these crappy like black and white TV stuff. So they're telling my mom to push, and she's pushing, and they realize that I'm in distress and my heart rate is going up. So they're like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. So they did an emergency C-section. Turns out I had it wrapped around my neck. And when I came out, I think that caused like spinal damage to me because I had issues with my ear, my left ear. So the doctors would say he's not going to be able to talk like properly because if you can't hear, you can't speak. And he's definitely not going to be able to hear, like be good and hear music because his hearing will be messed up. Growing up, I had really bad earaches until, I don't know, 5 or 6. And my dad, he would be with me in the emergency room in the middle of the night, man. God bless that guy. Cause I got kids now and it's tough when you're working and
well, last time we were on a podcast together, I think it was Jose's. Like,
yeah.
You had to drop out early because your kid had something going on with you. And like,
yeah,
I mean, I don't have kids. I've got a dog. Like, that's about it. I think one time he like threw up in the middle of a meeting. That was pretty much it. That's the worst that's ever happened to me. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the stress that your dad went through and that you were going through that night and everything.
Yeah, and for him, it was constant. He said maybe twice, 3 times a week he's in the emergency room, and the guy's up 4 a.m. and then goes to work. He was a mailman, comes back at 6 p.m., does it all over again. But imagine going to the hospital in the middle of the night for that. So they got fed up with. They were like, "Yo, we got to try something," because the doctors are just, they don't know what to do. They're giving me medicine. They're just treating the symptoms. And they brought me to a chiropractor, which is, frowned upon, I guess. And the guy tapped on my spine a little bit, a couple of times. I don't know how he figured it out. And he would just tap, tap, tap. And, I don't know, realigned my spine. And now here I am, fine. And I'm a little retarded, but, that's not his fault.
That's the umbilical cord's fault. Yeah, my aunt's a chiropractor. We used to go to her, Actually, I was in a few car accidents when I was like, I think 7th grade and a couple more like in high school. And so I was going to her like 5 times a week. I mean, mostly it was so that she could get the money for my insurance, but like it definitely worked. I swear by chiropractic.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's like when I started going to the chiropractor again, like a year ago or so, my partner was like, "Oh, that's junk science, blah blah blah. Like, there's no studies that show that chiropractic is real." I'm like, "Well, I mean, it works for me. I don't know. Like, I mean, if you look it up on Wikipedia, sure, the evidence of the efficacy of chiropractic is slim, but like,
yeah, but if you go on Wikipedia, the evidence of the efficacy of a vaccine is 100%. See, I give myself myocarditis the original way right here with this monster. So. Nice. Fuck that shit. But yeah, I'm not a doctor, but if you are gonna go to a chiropractor, I guess do your homework on the person, because if they're messing with my spine or whatever they're doing, it's probably important that the person knows what they're doing. So be careful with that.
My chiropractor. So I walked into the office, like I knew that he was pretty red pilled because I was actually a referral. My friend was going to him and like. he told me, "Oh yeah, this guy doesn't wear masks. I'm a little nervous going in there." Like I asked him if he could put one on for me. I'm like, okay. So I go to him, and I'm wearing my mask. We had a mandate, and it was just like everybody was wearing them everywhere. So I walked in the office. He goes, I mean, do you mind if I take this off? I was like, oh yeah, I'm a what did I say? Oh, I said I'm an anti-masker, or no, I said I'm a science denier. That's what because back then that's what the thing was. You're denying science if you don't wear the mask. He goes, oh well, I'm a nonsense denier, and just we hit it off since then. I actually have been meaning to get him on the show because he actually just bought like a 3-acre property out in the country and is homesteading.
Oh,
in
wonderful!
Addition to owning a chiropractic, yeah, pretty great. So
Actually,
anyway.
not to cut you off, but yeah, we purchased 10 acres, me and my wife, in Florida, as like
Wow.
it's a second home there. And I've been doing like a lot. I don't know if you've noticed on my Twitter, I'm like, what's the deal with ducks? What's up with chickens? And because now I have like maybe like 5,000 followers or something. And I know it's such a great community. I could just be like, yo, what's up with those chickens, bro? And like 100 people will start talking about chickens. And so I'm interested in that. I'm interested in the homestead and starting, but obviously it'll be difficult with the distance. So, but yeah, I'm doing that. I want to be a little self-sustaining.
That's
I think
awesome. So have you guys moved in to that place, or are you said you're, I think, renting, right?
Yeah, we're in New York. I still work here, so it's a struggle. It's but we do own out there. We have the land, so we're gonna start up, and I'll split my time, go over there, come over here, and until we'll see what happens.
Cool.
Yeah, I'll be down there for the convention on the coming down the 25th, but I'm going to be probably all day Saturday. I'll be there. So if you're listening to this, find me. I look like this, and I'll have I'll have like I'm bringing T-shirts if they come here in time, and I'm bringing those Tom Wood stickers that actually I didn't have they didn't get here for the Tom Woods thing, but I'll be giving them out. So a little old,
damn.
but yeah.
I need to get one of those actually. I'll send you my address.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you a couple. Yeah.
All right, let's get back to Tommy's advice to me, because I wanted to make this point. So we're talking about the truckers. I'm black-pilled on it because I think that the government is just going to continue overreaching, and the ratchet theory and all that stuff. But Tommy's point was, look, these truckers are not doing this to defang the government. They're doing this to stave them off for a little bit so that you have time to buy a 10-acre property in Florida, disentangle yourself from the systems of control a little, like you have a little bit longer. They don't, like, Agenda 2030 is not Agenda 2022. It's Agenda 2030 because they understand that, like, this is going to take them longer to do than maybe some of their more idealistic allies would hope.
Yeah. They were aggressive. They were aggressive with that time frame, and that's probably been planned for a long time. I think Trump fucked them up a little bit with that. That's the thing. When you get into this conspiracy theory, it's like it could be like, well, Trump won because this or that. He had people in the deep state that were, or they'll say Trump won because he's part of it. Who really knows? But from the way it looks to me, like all signs say, whether he was placed there or not, he kind of screwed up their plans with whatever he was doing. I don't think he accelerated them. I think he forced them to accelerate their plans, and then that's why you're seeing a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. Or maybe they're not mistakes. Maybe it's jujitsu. Like, I mean,
it's hard to say.
It's really hard to say. That's why, to me, like, the most important thing is what Tommy said: insulating yourself, not fighting against it, because the more you fight against it, so they're either super incompetent, and if you protect yourself from them, then great, you're better off for it, and they're going to fail. Or they are not incompetent, they know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to win. And if you're insulated from them, well, great, you've made yourself a better place in the world, and you will be that much more resistant to tyranny when it does actually happen.
If you're of the mindset that these people can't be beaten, then I don't even know what we're doing here. Like, because I guess right now any podcast, anytime I even draw, like, why am I, besides, like, making a little bit of money, I'm drawing to hopefully have, spread a message and maybe have some people have a conversation about something that they wouldn't otherwise think about or talk about. So why am I doing that if I think that these people are, omnipresent or what's the word?
Omnipotent.
Omnipotent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that they are. I think that they are smart people. They have a plan. I think that their plan fails oftentimes and blows up in their face. Then they recoup and they try a different direction. They do something
Yeah.
else.
Well, that's
Yeah.
the recoup and trying something different is the part that makes me think that they're going to continue doing this. Are you familiar with Bob Higgs and the Ratchet effect?
No.
Okay,
I
so the
probably
Ratchet
am,
effect.
but go.
Yeah, I'll just tell you. The Ratchet effect basically says that the government will gain this much power.
Hmm.
So, and then they will eventually walk back, but they'll only walk back like so much. They won't go all the way back to where they started from. They go
Yeah.
back, like a ratchet. When you turn the ratchet, it continues to turn the nut, even if you're going back some and then turning it some more.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my kind of assumption, is that they will continue to amass power for themselves until they become so big and so strong and so fragile that they will fall, because the bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Yeah. I said that I was talking with Eric Brakey last week, actually on Monday, and I said that the government has figured out, especially with Americans, they know exactly how far to push and stop, right? Right before they take 2 steps back, but they've already pushed you 10. So they know exactly how far they can push you without you getting violent, because it felt like at some points it was like, this is touch and go. Like, people are going to start going crazy out there, but they've perfected that. So yeah, I don't know where it leads. I think you're right. I think they will get too big, too bloated, and you already see, like, when something is too big, they can't protect their flanks as well. They don't really understand, and then they also start focusing on being a hammer rather than taking care of the small details around them. So yeah, they're leaking, they're dying.
I don't think, yeah, and I'm not, so I don't know if I'm black pilled or white pilled or pink pilled or whatever, but like, I do know that I have very little faith in Klaus Schwab and his designs for world domination. Like, it's really funny to me that he's so upfront about that. Like, he really really does believe in global governance so much that, like, he talks about it as if it's not like literally what every villain in every piece of fiction that deals with anything political like has ever done. Like, it's every James Bond movie. Um it's
Yeah.
Pinky in the Brain. I mean, it's everything. Like, he's trying to take over the world. And like,
But God
I
bless
mean,
these guys, man. They have big dreams. Look, Bill Gates is talking about blocking out the fucking sun and
yeah,
getting you to drink shit water. I mean, I appreciate their endeavors, but to do these things, I just don't see how they can. There's
yeah,
so many people, like if you've read Mises' Human Action, you understand that there are there's 7 billion people doing I don't know 100 billion different things at once, and you think
yeah.
you're gonna centralize that? Go
So
ahead.
that's where I am. Like, the thing is, they're not going to succeed, not because people are protesting them, but because they can't succeed. Like, there's absolutely no way that a global empire could ever exist.
Yeah, they're
You know?
gonna try. They're gonna try. They're gonna cause a lot of chaos and death and destruction on their way to trying.
Yeah,
But ultimately, where does that get? Where did that get Nebuchadnezzar in the in the Tower of Babel? You know,
yeah,
this is what's happening again. They're taking aim. They're pointing their arrow at the sky to shoot at God. Whatever, it doesn't matter if you believe it, but it's the same story. It's the same archetype
right.
over
It
and
is.
over again. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And how that story ends. I mean, it's
it
amazing
never
to
ends.
see it. It never ends. It'll be that. I was telling my mom, because she is deeply religious, and she's like, we're living in the end times, and it's like, how many people have said that throughout the history of humanity, because it always looks worse, right?
Yeah,
Like, I just don't think that our time is that much worse than maybe before. It just looks worse because of the technology that we're using. But
mhm.
when my kids are my age, there's going to be even crazier technology, and they'll probably think that this is the end of the world. But who really
Yeah.
knows?
This
Yeah.
that idea of end times, where, like, So there's like several different sort of like theological visions of within Christianity. I mean, of like what the end of time is going to be. Um, there's one that says like things are going to get really shitty. Israel's going to rise up and like rebuild the temple, and then that's going to give Jesus permission now to come back and like reign from the temple in Israel. And so that, I mean, that's what shaped American foreign policy in the early 20th century was
Mm,
this eschatology. And so that's why like we're so entangled with Israel right now.
yeah.
Was because of these evangelical Christians who were in charge. But that is like a uniquely American and kind of British theology. Um, if you ask like the early Christians and like the Protestant reformers and that sort of thing, all of the like end time stuff is actually more symbolic, and that we're like right now we might be ending in an end times. That does not mean that we're like at the time when Jesus is going to come back. It just means that like we're at the end of a span of time, like an era. And I
Yeah.
totally agree with that. I mean, it gets back to that societal decay thing. um and I mean, whether the second coming happens in 10 years or not, uh I think that bettering ourselves, and I don't mean, God, I hate that phrase, bettering myself, because everybody, whenever somebody says that, they're inevitably going to grad school, which fucking Jesus Christ, like come up with something better to better yourself. But I mean, if we don't like enhance our state in life at this end of the age, then we're going to be in a really dire situation when the new age kind of transitions.
Yeah.
And we're having to watch other people rebuild it around us with no say in what happens in our individual lives. We have no idea what that's going to be like. It'll be like a new
It,
dark age.
sometimes I wonder, like, if these world economic or the globalist types are, if they're trying to form this, like we spoke about before, are you trying to form this culture into what you want to see, or are they intentionally collapsing it because they already have an idea of what they want to build in its stead? So
Yeah.
it's really it's hard to say. Yeah, I don't know exactly what they're doing. I had an idea when you were talking that I lost. I let it slip. Oh man, I forgot
That's
what I
right.
was gonna say. Yeah.
Think about it. So your name is your company name and sort of your pseudonym. I'm glad that you're going by Danny, by the way. I was going to ask you if it was okay for me to call you that, because like I knew it, but I wasn't sure how public you were with it. Uh,
I've already been doxxed by the Faketarian, so you could go ahead and
yeah,
call me
I,
whatever.
I know. I wasn't sure. Like, okay, so but TopLobsta, I'm assuming is from Jordan Peterson, like a reference to his work, right?
Yeah. So before I was like in libertarianism, I was a big fan of Jordan Peterson, and the first chapter in his book, and even in his lectures before, he always talked about the lobster and the
Yeah,
dominance hierarchy. And I guess the analogy he was making is that their neurological system is very similar to our neurological system, and every time a lobster will fight, uh, when one wins, he gets more dopamine, which is the same. I mean, we get hits of dopamine on here all the time on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. Every time you win, the lobster stands up taller and larger, and that ascends him higher up the dominance hierarchy. So it was a screen name that I was using in an email just for fun. I don't think many people got it, but it was like, I'm in the top of the dominance hierarchy, just joking around, and then it somehow turned into this. I just kind of used it, and people seem to like it, so yeah,
yeah,
I'm stuck with it.
I love it. I think Jordan Peterson is better than libertarianism uh for like personal enrichment and really how to create a better society. Um,
Yeah,
I don't think that you can create a good society from a political ideology, but you can from personal empowerment. If
yeah,
everyone took what Jordan Peterson has to say, then it wouldn't matter what kind of system of governance we had.
yeah. Clean your goddamn room, Bucko.
Yeah,
Or
which
his better advice for Joe Rogan would have been, don't apologize to the mob, Bucko.
Jesus,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
real, man.
yeah.
Like I I cannot believe that Joe, like, sure. I mean, look, you don't want to say the N word on on a bunch of podcasts. Like, that's my biggest criticism of the Tower Gang. But like, I mean, he said it. Like, it's there. You can't. These people are not looking for your apology. Like, they're looking to punish you. And you have to
Yeah,
realize that. Like the we were talking earlier about how like the DSA meetings are like church services. the difference between the DSA and a church is that there's no room for redemption in leftist movements. That's the big thing. Like that's the big thing that separates them from traditional religions. Like they have their scapegoats just like every other religion. They have like their angels and their demons. And if you're the embodiment of the demon, if you're a racist or a perceived Nazi, or if you have the wrong kind of flag on your car or whatever it is, then you are scapegoated by them, and there's no redemption for the scapegoat. The scapegoat is shunned. They're cast out. They are the sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so, when Joe Rogan, who has traditional leftist political leanings, is the scapegoat, you can't apologize. Like you have to steel yourself against this. You have to lean on your tribe,
Yeah.
because you're going to be cast out by this tribe. That's going to happen. And so, if you apologize to them and try to kowtow to them, then that looks bad to your tribe, like the people who won't scapegoat you.
That's the thing. It's people that are in a culture. I mean, if you want to talk about a culture war, at the forefront, Joe Rogan is the guy on the right, whether he knows it or not. You are the leader of this culture war against the entire mainstream media and now the government. And he doesn't know it. Maybe he does, but I watch him every episode almost, and it doesn't seem like he's aware of it. He's aloof to it. He wants to still espouse left-wing views. That's fine, but this is like a very clear, cut and dry thing now. That the world has been polarized, or at least the world has been polarized. So pick a side, or get what you get now. Unfortunately, that's how it is. You can't be a fence sitter. And with the N-word, you know what? Tower Gang, say it. This is a filter. My mom asked me, she's like, how come they say you guys say all crazy shit, like you're cursing? And I was like, because right away, like the intro starts off with crazy shit. If you don't like it, go away. Like there's enough people that do like this stuff. I'm not trying to talk to the whole world. Fuck you. I want to talk to the people I want to talk to, and that's the best way to do it. I mean, does Cole say it a little bit too much? Maybe. But
he's from Alabama, so it's okay, right?
It's part. Yeah, he grew up. That was his first word. So we can't take that away from him, man. Listen. I know that there might be a time and place and comedic timing, but then to say you're saying it too much or you're not saying enough, I don't know. I'm just happy that the people who would hear it, if they don't like it, don't listen. You can complain about it, you can cry about it if you want to, and we're gonna say whatever. But yeah, I just want to talk to the people that I want to talk to at this point. I don't even talk to most of my family anymore. Like 2020 to 2022 has like, it's been such a clear defining moment for me where it's like I have a lot to do. I've got kids, I've got work, I've got business, I have another job. I don't have time for bullshit. I don't have time to dance around my words, to try to be friends with people who have, especially now when your mind's opened up, like like the Joe Rogan thing. You're trying to be friends with people who hate you. Why am I bothering with you? I'll go find my own people. And if I don't know. I do enjoy offending people. I enjoy watching them like squirm. That I'm an asshole, I guess, but my Twitter is very nice. If you see what I post, my Facebook, my personal Facebook page, the people that I actually know. Oh yeah. I know it's the opposite most of the time. Most of the time, people are combatant with strangers. I'll post a meme. I'll shit on some people here and there. With the people I actually know, I am. I'm very combatant because I know you. And listen, I'm not afraid of physical conflict. They're not going to fight me. And if they do, then what? I mean, but I know you, and I take more offense that you're this stupid. So I'm going to talk to you about it, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm feeling.
I have mostly for the most part, I've successfully insulated myself from very unsavory characters, to say the least. I don't have a lot of friends who were like masked Nazis, for instance. Like I have a lot of friends who wore masks and are still wearing masks. I don't have anybody who is going to scream at me in a grocery store for not wearing one. I tend to be the one who's screaming at them for still wearing them, but that's because I'm also kind of an asshole. But I have this one friend who uh, I don't know, 2.5 years ago was like he was ready to go move to Las Vegas to be a cop. And the Las Vegas PD is the only police department in a major city that doesn't require a college degree. So if he didn't want to go back to school, but he did want to be a cop and he desperately wanted to be a cop ever since childhood, um, he was going to go to Vegas and do it. Thankfully, he failed their polygraph and was unable to become a cop in Vegas. Long story. He has no idea why he failed the polygraph, but I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
And I always was like, dude, you have got to stop bootlicking so much. Like just he loved cop culture. He's always like, you should go on a ride along. You should see what their job is really like. It's actually like really compassionate. And it's like all this stuff. And like, granted, yes, the majority of what cops do is driving around in a car, like maybe saying hi to people or whatever. But like, it's not the majority that I'm worried about. It's the people who are murdering Duncan Lemp and that poor kid that was fucking the SWAT. I forget his name. Forgive me, but like this
Yeah.
22-year-old kid in Minneapolis, another Minneapolis, which is where I live, so it hits home. Police shooting where they just broke into the kid's house, or it wasn't even his house. He was crashing on somebody's couch, and he happened to have a gun. He's permitted and everything. Like he's got his concealed carry. And actually, if you look at the video, like even after being startled awake by this SWAT raid, he had perfect trigger and muzzle discipline, like just everything. And they shot him and killed him. And like all that's the stuff that I'm worried about, that I don't want this guy to be involved in. Well, so he's mixed race. And after George Floyd, he took a complete 180. He now, is not real big on the cops. I don't think he was part of like the defund the police or anything like that, but he no longer wants to become one. He quit his job as Capitol Security in St. Paul, and became a flight attendant. Great, more power to you. Quit working for the government. That's awesome. But the thing is, that kind of swing away from being a bootlicker has gone in the opposite direction on everything. And so now he's like he just like brazenly posted this just complete shit talk about people, like the entire state of Mississippi, for being pig fucking racists or whatever on his. And they're talking about the animal. I think it might have even been sheep fucking, but like just on his Snapchat story, it was like a group chat from work, as if that's appropriate. Like people are getting fired from airlines for
that's fine. That's encouraged.
Yeah. I mean, that's against people in Mississippi. It's not against an approved victim class. But I guess my point is, like, this is that he's gone from the kind of person who would be like literally throwing me on the boxcar because he's a cop, to cheering on the people who want to throw me on a boxcar. And I'm not sure which one is worse.
You missed him in the middle. This is why I hate people like Todd Hagopian and I don't know, like Nicholas Sarwark. I mean, these are obviously standard scapegoats for this kind of thing. But if you're trashing, in my opinion, when I see libertarians that are, most of them have come from the right. That's why I think Dave Smith is doing such a great job. That's where I kind of came from the right side. And then you have the left libertarians who are not just our left, but like who actively hate conservatives. And then they'll voice their opinion. I'm like, no one's coming here from the left. Like the left is so ingrained in their religion and their culture. They dominate right now. You're not getting those people. But the disillusioned people from the right are all over the place. And when they get pushed away from the right, look at your friend. He swings all the way to the left. I knew that the story was going to end when you were telling me. I'm like, he probably is like a BLM guy, has like, one of those shirts. It's like, you got to grab those people on the swing and say, hey, this right, the stuff on the right, they have some good ideas, but let's refine those ideas. Don't go over here. This shit doesn't make any sense. Let's refine those and have some sensibilities about it. But, we have a lot of leadership that just pushes them away. And with the Mises Caucus thing, I was one of the outspoken people who, for vice chair, they were running Eric Radsup. And I talk with Josh all the time, and he's like, look at this guy. Before he went nuclear on him, and I was like, this is just not good. Don't sacrifice your principles to reach an olive branch to people that hate you. I guess this is the theme of this show. Stop doing that shit. They hate you. Understand that. Stay away from them. If they want to come to you, they have to meet you. They're lost right now, and you got to understand that. Sharpen your skills, work on your shit here. But yeah, I really can't stand the libertarians that actively push them away. You've got to like leave something open for them and kind of just persuade them a little bit. But that's where it's going to come from. When this shit falls, we have to build there, and a lot of our power is going to come from people on the right. Even if they're Republicans, still conservatives, bring them a little bit closer. You know?
There's this guy in Iowa. So he's like LP Iowa, just like Josh. But he was DMing me the other day asking me to talk to this trans woman who is like real active at outright libertarians, which is like the absolute word. They're like the DSA of the Libertarian Party. There's awful. But they're like the LGBTQ organization within the LP. And they are to my mind like the polar opposite of the Mises Caucus. And like Fakertarians, I'm guessing that the transgender or non-binary or whatever they are, the one that wears the cat ears on
the cat person. Yeah.
I'm guessing they're probably aligned with outright. Anyway, there's this trans woman in outright in Iowa who this guy was like, hey, can you talk to her, because like she's starting to kind of feel like the Mises Caucus might not be so bad, and I'd love to present a good like LGBT messenger of the Mises Caucus. I'm like, no, dude, she's not going to listen to me. like maybe she'll come around, but it's not going to be because like I reasoned her into it. And I was talking to Josh about it yesterday, and he was like, oh yeah, no, we're working on her campaign. She's running for Senate. My fiance is working, and I'm like, that's how you're going to win her over. Like, make friends. Don't try to persuade these people. Like, they're not rational. There are some people who will be persuaded by your arguments, but this is not them.
My input would have been just to ignore completely anyway. But God bless Josh. Maybe that'll work. But I'm like, I'm just not wasting one more second with these people. Just not gonna do it. If anything, it'll poison, because if you come over and you start asking, then you're cool and you start asking me to make concessions. I've already played. We've played that game. We've made concessions. No more sacrificing. This is what I think. That's it. It's actually why I'm not a fan of Jordan Peterson anymore. I still appreciate him, but maybe 2018, 2017, when he was saying, what's the guy's name? Brett Kavanaugh. You remember that whole thing?
No. What did you say about Brett Kavanaugh?
All right, so Brett Kavanaugh is a retard anyway. He co-wrote the Patriot Act, and he's obviously awful on a number of issues. This was a culture war issue, and this was the left trying to defame him. You remember that, right?
So Brett Kavanaugh, just for people who don't remember, he was Trump's the Supreme Court nominee, who those two women came forward saying that he raped them in college, and like nothing ever came of it. It turned out at least one of them was just outright lying, and the other one presented no evidence. So what did Peterson say about that? I guess I wouldn't pay attention.
It's the first sign of weakness that I noticed from him, where he was like, he was saying, the right needs to reach out to the left and basically make a concession and tell him, find another appointee, which they should have for other reasons, because he's terrible.
He's really bad, but
not that reason. Stop kowtowing to these people. So that was like originally when Jordan Peterson was like, they should do this, and I was just like, nah, you're losing the plot here. And then more recently, again, he's lost the plot, and maybe he's come to his senses. He has a soft spot in my heart, so I'm open to him. I'm telling Jordan Peterson to learn, but he's like, he posted at one point.
Well, he watches this show, so he'll listen to your messages.
Yeah, he'll listen. Perfect. Yeah, Jordan Peterson. Yeah, I took your damn shots, Trudeau, and enough is enough. I took 2, and that's enough. It's like, no, 0 is enough. Or when they ask you, fuck you, that's enough.
Yeah,
I'll do this.
That's where I'm at. Like I got the original 2 shots because I'm fat and unhealthy and I don't want to get COVID. Like, fine.
That's a different reason. If you're doing it to comply.
Yeah, and like I had no illusions that it was going to make things better, for societally. And like, now that Minneapolis has a vaccine mandate, like I'm not going to restaurants in Minneapolis. Like I've boycotted the city. And I've made it clear to the places where I'm a regular that I am boycotting this city. I'm not boycotting you, but if you were to stand up and like buck this mandate, I would be through your door in a second. I'd eat there every night. I'd bring my friends there, etc. Like it's so tragic to me that, first of all, I'm not going to say that I fell for it. Like, I think that the science was pretty good on the vaccines. Like, I mean, there were not anomalies. There were holes in the research. that I was willing to overlook because I generally have a trust in medicine, like per se, not the pharmaceutical companies, but like me and my doctor have a good rapport, or at least we have had one. He's pushing the booster on me and I'm not going to get it, but I mean, I follow his advice generally. And so that's why I got the vaccine. And I'm not going to say I regret it, but like, I f- I do not like, I just don't like the politics behind it. That's all. I guess that's all I'm saying.
That's really what it comes down to. And from what I don't know Jordan Peterson's reasons for getting it. Maybe he is immunocompromised, and I understand why people would go and get a vaccine if they felt that it would make them safe. And at the time, maybe it would. But when you say like, "Hey, I did what you asked, and you didn't hold up your bargain to give me back my liberty,"
as if they were ever going to do that.
Like, yeah, dude, I learned that from you. You're the one who said this. You said it in your books. You've said it in your lectures. Like, they don't stop. They're going to keep pushing you. On the first time he was on Joe Rogan, he says they'll keep pushing you, and you'll look down and you'll be a mile from where you started. You said that, Jordan. I didn't say that. And here we are. You're a living example of what you told us not to do. It's kind of amazing. And it's kind of like that's my gripe with him. It's like, you've told so many people this and don't live it. I don't understand that, you know? Yeah, it's like you're not holding up to your convictions. Like, what is this?
I was saying all throughout 2020, because, I mean, that was during his little time in Russia where he was sick. I kept saying that, like, the world has never needed Jordan Peterson more than it does now. And I was so disappointed when he came back and was not just complete. And the thing is, Michaela, his daughter, was like, she was really outspoken. I mean, she's kind of a hussy and kind of like just not persuasive. But she was outspoken, and she was saying that he would be outspoken if he were well enough to, to speak out. And then he came back and he was well enough to speak out, and he didn't.
Yeah. It's like, I feel like he has some different ideas, but I feel like now he's performing his greatest hits. You'll see that a lot on podcasts. James Lindsay, for instance, love what he's saying. Went on Joe Rogan, greatest hits of what you've been seeing him talk about. Then he goes on other podcasts, and it's just a recap of what he said on Joe Rogan. I think that The Naturalist Capitalist did a good job of kind of bringing him into a different territory, but you'll see that a lot. Yeah, they touched on other things that weren't. I think he even told Reed, he said this was a more fun interview than the Joe Rogan one, because I didn't just ask you, like, I know what you do good. Here's a softball, and you hit that out the park. It's like, let's improvise. Let's play a little jazz. I like your recorded material, but let's do a 20-minute solo where you just kind of noodle off the top of your head. Reed did a good job of that. Yeah, but you'll see, if you're a fan of podcasts, you'll notice that a lot. Like, someone will have someone on, and then they'll make the rounds on your other favorite podcasts, and it's like, this was the same interview, because now they're just you sell. Yeah, but it's up to the interviewer. I think you're doing a good job right now, because you're getting me to like noodle and talk about stuff that I haven't really mentioned on other podcasts, but just like poke a little bit and move them somewhere else so that we can keep it creative. And Jordan Peterson, I don't think he's done that. I mean, 2018 Jordan Peterson and today's is fairly similar, but we're 2 years into the most fascistic tyranny that, the world's ever been through. So where's your message?
People who are saying the same thing that they were saying in 2019 today are like, they're to me like worse than useless. And again, I hate to keep bringing up Reason, but that's, I mean, Jesus Christ, like the fact that Reason magazine like was citing the CDC in tweets and in their articles, and their science writer Ron Bailey is just tragic. That's the real thing. They're just taking all their advice from him, and he's just regurgitating everything that the government scientific bodies have to say.
Yeah, and what a tragedy.
But they'll say hopefully the CDC's newest guidelines will convince more people to take the vaccine or whatever. But like, they'll also say like, oh, but Joe Rogan should never be censored. But Spotify's a private company, so they can do whatever they want. They can censor him, but the government, like, it's just, Yeah.
To me, they're doing more of a disservice to the science than like Dr. Fauci, because I immediately don't trust Dr. Fauci, but when they do this kind of stuff, it kind of it reinforces in my mind where I want to in my mind I want to just anytime there's a corporate narrative about science, I want to dismiss it. But there are good things that come from that, like you're saying, like, you know, there are scientists doing shit, but now I have to become like, I don't know, one of these people that are like, you know the trope, all the Jews control the weather. It's like, no, four of them control the weather. But now I have to like you're making me want to generalize all of this great study and throw it out when we're lost as a society, man, because
Yeah.
we do need those people. They know what they're doing, but I can't trust any of them, you know.
Yeah, exactly. That's what. Well, and actually, I just had a brief interaction with Kathy Young, who I don't know if she still writes for Reason, but she's got him in their bio still, so maybe she does. But like, she's criticizing Glenn Greenwald because Glenn Greenwald is, you know, saying that the obvious thing that Joe Rogan like represents a threat to the media.
Mm.
And that's why he's being canceled. It's not because like he's actually promoting junk science or whatever. Like
It's not because he said the N-word.
he's saying things that aren't allowed to be said. And Kathy Young responds, can't Glenn contemplate the possibility that others are sincerely concerned about Rogan's podcast being a vehicle for vaccine skeptics? And so I respond to her, have you contemplated that people are sincerely concerned that the vaccines are something to be skeptical about, and that people who voice those concerns are being suppressed?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, she's just, she responded to me, calling it junk science and paranoid bullshit. Like, my response to her was simply, how can you possibly know it's junk science? She didn't respond to that, but like, how can she? She's a journalist, and not a very good one at that. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how libertarians
They're
can just drink this propaganda up.
they're
It's
terrified. It's complete. I think it's just complete fear. I think, and you see the people who are scared, and you see the people who I mean, I was a little scared in the beginning, and I'm still scared now, not about the virus but about everything. But you've got to be brave. Like, what other, there's no other choice you have. And the people who are cowardly, they will always take that path of what's approved and what everyone else is saying, because they can hide in the flock and keep their head down. They understand you pick your head up, you get it cut off. But we're at a point where that's what you got to do. And the more people that stick their head up, the less people get their heads cut off.
Yeah. Yeah, you've seen that cartoon with the guy cracking the whip, and like what,
Yes.
like all the people are bowing down to him. Then one person stands up, and then everyone starts standing up, and then the guy with the whip like has no power.
Yes, that's exactly what's happening. But we also have to be careful with, like I said before, throwing away all of this science. It's my general instinct to do it, but
Yeah.
it's just not good to do.
Yeah, like you know, I mean, a year ago, to a year and a half ago, whenever it was, I mean, everybody on our side was talking about herd immunity. It turned out that herd immunity is kind of bullshit. Like, that's not going to happen here. This is going to be the flu, and
Yeah.
so, like, you know, we had to eat a little bit of crow on that, and that's fine. I'm happy to eat crow, but I wish that the other side would also do the rest of us that favor of eating their crow, because they've been wrong about so much more than the scientists that we listen to.
Which is why I don't even interact with them. They're wrong. They will never admit that they're wrong. They move on to the next thing and they gaslight
Yeah,
you. Where we're
yeah,
so concerned about being, you know, I love Tom Woods, but we're concerned about making charts and proving them wrong. They don't give a fuck. It's great.
yeah.
It's great to reinforce us, but they're like, they just don't care. They're not signing up to that email list. So it's like, I was on a panel with Scott Horton and Dave Smith, and I had asked them at one point. They kind of like, they were like, like, fuck you. But I was like, yeah, I was like, why are you being honest with these people? Or not just honest, but being consistent. Like, if somebody calls a Bill Clinton a pedophile, I just say, yeah. Like, I'm not interested in like, well, where are the flight logs? And I don't care. You call them pedophile, let's just say yeah and run with that shit, because that's what you do. And you're shaping a narrative. So I'm just like, all right, whatever. But, you know, I understand people want to be consistent about stuff, and they should. There's a time, and there are people that should be consistent. For me, Like, yo, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm
Yeah.
about to call The Rock
Well,
a pedophile and see where that goes because he's pissing me off too.
yeah, he's just yeah. I don't want to get into I don't want to get into The Rock because holy shit,
Yeah.
if ever I mean if ever there was somebody who should not be bowing down, it's him. Like, good
Yeah.
lord, like
If I wasn't already dead inside, that would have killed me. But
yeah. And if this had been 20 years ago when I was a huge professional wrestling fan and like, was totally smelling what The Rock was cooking and he came out and was like just becoming a woke skald, like I can't imagine. I cannot imagine just what that would have done to my psyche. Anyway,
maybe there's a conspiracy theory about where professional wrestling goes and society goes, because once the Attitude Era ended and you moved into this what do they call it? It was some other shit. Now it's like real PC, and it's like, yeah, it's it. I still watch it from time to time, but it's just cool. It's garbage. But before you grew up in that era where it was like real. The Rock was saying crazy shit, and Stone Cold was flipping everyone off. Now you're in this milquetoast era where they can't touch too many lines. Product is garbage. Kind of interesting how that moves with the culture.
I almost feel like tuning in just to see what it's doing. I didn't even think about it like that. I mean, I know that like women wrestlers became a huge deal in recent years.
Yeah, with everything, some are good, some are bad.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think I stopped watching. Like the last Monday Night Raw that I watched was when Stephanie McMahon and Triple H got married. Like, oh, this is just become like The Young and the Restless. I don't want to watch this. So
yeah. I tune in. I mean, again, we're off topic here, but I think the wrestling has gotten better in years. Like people are more dynamic and athletic.
Really?
But
probably because they bought ECW, right? Because WWF just basically bought up WCW and ECW, right?
Yeah, ECW and what was that called? Luchador, that stuff, like the Spanish wrestling where they're doing high flying stuff and flips and shit. That makes it interesting, but storylines are really what it's about, and they're just not. Sometimes they'll grab you, but most of the time they're just not there. Maybe because they have to be careful with what they do and say. Like everything else in entertainment these days, not many great shows coming out. See them here and there, but for the most part, it's just the same shit rehashed because you can't. It seems like the left can't create, but it's another subject.
Some of the best TV shows are super subversive too. I mean, just like whatever the attitude of the age is, they kind of run counter to it. Like, I mean, Mad Men is the most anti-feminist show, and it was one of the best shows. And like American Horror Story, the season with I think it was called Cult, where like it started out, you thought that it was going to be like a Trump cult. It was going to be like the right wing followers of this, presidential candidate who was Donald Trump, but it actually ended up being like a left-wing cult. Exactly what we're seeing today. This progressive religion. It was so surprising to me watching that. I was like, oh my god, they're going to be just making a complete caricature of the right because it's trendy, and they didn't, and it was so good. Okay, anyway, why don't unless you have something to say about TV, we can move on to your list.
I agree with you. It's always a treat when it does go the other way. I just can't. My wife can't even watch stuff with me because I'm very sensitive to the propaganda, and I'll just be like, "That's bullshit," and this is why.
I suppress it. I don't even use the word narrative around my partner anymore because it makes him roll his eyes.
It's so hard to do.
I know.
Like, I'm too woke for this shit, man. I can't watch it. Hey, right, David, cool. What's up, David?
David Brady. Hey, what's up, bud? He's actually here in Minnesota. He's thinking about running for my position on the LPMN. So
cool. I think you have to be over 13, David. So sorry.
All right. Why don't you drop your links and we can get out of here?
Yeah. Follow me on Twitter, TopLobsta _ TopLobsta.com. I have Break the Cycle, Naturals Capitalist, Liberty Lockdown, No Way Jose, Tower Power Hour merch up there, and all of my shit up there. And TopLobsta with an A everywhere else. That's where you can find me. I'll be at the Florida convention on the 25th. So if you're out there on the Saturday, come say what's up. And yeah, maybe awesome. I'll have some.
Are you going to be at the Reno, the national convention?
I got to convince my wife, but if I'm trying to become a delegate. If I do become a delegate, I think I will try to get down there. I've never actually been to Reno or the West Coast in general, so it would be cool.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah. Well, if you make it, we'll see you there. I might be able to make it to Florida, but it'll be good to see you if we do, or if you do. And if not, we'll bump into each other at some point.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks a lot for giving us some time, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, brother. Had a blast. Thank you.
See ya. Oh, hey, there's my mom. Hey, Mom. All right, now we're done.